Hello there, it is time for yet another in real life video. Sorry, I'm adjusting the mic a little bit, getting a whole lot of shaking going on. Very sorry about this, but this is continuing our Let's Watch, little miniature mini sub-series of in real life videos wherein we are watching the first season of the Fallout television series. And this is the finale, right? These are the last two episodes, thus this is the last of this mini-series. And before we get into, like, the recap and, like, rough analysis, just kind of, like, you know, off the cuff, let me just say, oh my god, I loved it. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's really wild. It's really, really wild. Yeah, well, let's get into it. Let's dig into the deets, baby. Holy guacamole. So as if the last two episodes were not already wild enough and pushing things forward within sort of the greater world building of the entire, like, franchise, this is like that times like 2 or 3, right? This is so wild. Obviously, if you're watching this and you've already watched it, right, this is like your companion piece to it. We'll know where we're going with a lot of this, right? These are just my collected thoughts, as it were. I've written quite a few pages of stuff in here just for these two episodes. This is just for these two episodes. Right? That's just for these last two episodes. So we open with episode 7, starting with a desert, right? Desert wasteland opening shot. We see one, and then quickly followed up with two people looking around in the desert sand, scanning with, like, a mine detector or, like, a metal detector for bottle caps, just kind of buried out in the waste, out in the sand. And we come to see what they're wearing. They're wearing riot gear. They're wearing NCR Ranger riot gear. You know, the iconic NCR look, right? They are wearing that stuff. I cannot help but wonder, are these NCR Rangers? Are these former Rangers? Is this in Nevada? Questions that we will perhaps not ever know the direct answer to. But alas, the ghoul is here too, meeting with them. They come into their little, like, shack or house or whatever, and they find the ghoul, Cooper, there eating a meal. They think that, like, uh-oh, did he, like, eat my child or something like that? And we come to find out that this is, like, a parent, a father, and 3 children, right? I assume belonging to him. And we get to see the youngest and the eldest, right? We hear, of course, Cooper is here sort of looking for information on where this MacGuffin is, on where to find the head and whatnot, just looking for leads on all of this, I believe. Important to note here, in seeing all of this stuff, in seeing all this, like, this iconography from the NCR Rangers, I cannot help but wonder, especially with how this dude moves in a fight, and his getup and his loadout, right? We joked at the beginning of this season, like, he sure does have the New Vegas loadout, right? He's got explosive rounds in his handgun. He's got a lever action slung across his back. He's even wearing the little cowboy hat. Is he actually a Ranger? Is he actually a former NCR Ranger? Because if you told me that, I would 100% believe you. We don't know for certain, but it sure seems that way. Especially with what he is able to pull off in a fight, which we will get onto later down the line in this video. But nonetheless, I am kind of very much working with the theory that this guy is a former NCR Ranger as well. Of course, the NCR you come to learn in New Vegas itself, NCR very much around that period would have ghouls operating as like snipers, as some of their most elite operatives within the Ranger organization, right? A lot of them were ghouls, and they were really good, and they live forever. It was such a fun little bit of world building. And you very frequently, of course, would not see their faces because they had the helmets and stuff on. And you would only ever really have a hint that they were a ghoul by talking with them. And hey, our ghoul is a ghoul. I think this could perfectly work out to where this is exactly what's going on here. That said, his handgun is not the sort of, what's it called? The Ranger Sequoia. It very much does not look like a Ranger Sequoia. I'm not really sure what type of like in-game gun it is, if any. It may be like a new type of weapon, right? It's some type of like revolver. I don't really know. Maybe it is a Ranger Sequoia, and it's just it's had all of the engravings and stuff like brushed off of it, filed off or something. Which would I think, given that he's not wearing the full getup, would make sense, right? If he has become disillusioned with the Rangers as an organization, that would make sense if he wanted to file it off. But the overall silhouette of the weapon doesn't match up to at least the New Vegas version, of that gun. So I don't know if that's actually it or a different type of handgun, right? I think it's a different handgun altogether rather than a Ranger Sequoia. Nonetheless, wild questions popping up already. We learn of, right, this courier from earlier on with the Enclave defector who was shot. Turns out that the courier was their middle sibling, right? Also as well, couriers can't help but be getting shot. Couriers be getting shot. Welcome to the wasteland, I guess. But Cooper is there as well to say that, oh, I can't let you live. I cannot let this eldest brother of the two remaining live because you are going to come for me looking for revenge. I cannot have that happen. You may say today that you don't want revenge, but someday you will show up on my doorstep. You will come knocking. You will come looking for me with revenge in your heart. And I need to nip that in the bud right now. And so he just shoots this man's adult son right in front of him, guns him down. And I cannot help but think he's going to have to come back. There are 3 siblings. There is a third, much younger child, right? If he does that, he is going to have to come back and kill this other kid. I'm guessing he just waited until... because he does have like this peculiar sense of morality about him. He definitely operates within his like own sort of code of ethics that we don't fully like have just straight up outlined for us, but we can kind of get a gesture of like, okay, he likes these things. He sort of tends toward this way or and so. But I would imagine he is coming back now because this eldest sibling now has turned 18. He cannot bring himself to shoot someone who he deems still as a child, right? Regardless of whether they're actually 18, but he deems them to be having reached like young adulthood, which is why he's also not gunning down this youngest yet. That said, maybe the youngest will come after him someday, right? Maybe that'll work out that way. Who can say? It would be, I guess, poetic if he dies to that kid. In like a future season way later down the line. Anyway, a lot of flipping back and forth between characters for these last 2 episodes, especially in the final episode, leading up to some wild events. But here we go to the sort of communist meeting in pre-war times that Charlie has convinced Cooper to attend, wherein Moldaver, right, is hosting it and is giving like a lecture to a room of folks who are gathered around in this, like, I don't know, fallen soldiers sort of memorial. I think it is. I think that's what it is. And Cooper is not buying it, right? Cooper is still fully disillusioned and is fully within the realm of like American propaganda and like, I'm not buying any of this commie horse shit or whatever, right? This is, I'm not buying it. And he walks out, but he is stopped. Charlie offers forgiveness or offers apologies to both parties, to Cooper, saying like, I'm sorry I brought you. And of course, apologizing profusely to Moldaver, I believe, for like, I should have never brought him. This was a mistake. But Moldaver, of course, says, no, this was a good thing. And says, I know a whole lot about your wife that you might be interested in. And, I'm willing to share with you, this information, right? Because the information, I'm sure, is valuable to me as it is to you. And she gives him a listening piece, a listening device, which he can use to hack into her Pip-Boy and transmit audio into the earpiece or whatever, right? And he says, no, of course I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't betray my wife's trust. And of course, earlier on in the season, we had seen, although we started with him being, with us knowing like, oh yeah, he's gone through a divorce, right? Right as the bombs fall. We see loads and loads of scenes where they get along very well. And they're like a very happy nuclear family, right? But she says to him, Moldaver says to Cooper, oh, just keep this listening device. Maybe you'll change your mind. Just consider it a gift then, right? And true enough, eventually it does come up later. Moldaver as well goes so far as to say that Vault-Tec, that the reason Moldaver is important in this situation is that Moldaver worked in research and development for who? I don't think we know, right? I think maybe was just a private researcher. I'm not sure. But in and of itself, you know, Vault-Tec is very private sector. But regardless, Vault-Tec bought Moldaver's research, which we don't currently quite know exactly what it is. But we do have insight into what kind of person Moldaver is. Moldaver is clearly has very high science skill or whatever, right? She also goes so far as to say to Cooper Howard, I'm not a communist, Mr. Howard, right? It's just a dirty word used by like the opposition or whatever to brand us in a way to sort of obfuscate, right? Very fascinating insight there. I have to wonder if she's just saying that or if she believes it to be true, right? Certainly that is like no... if you're in left-leaning spaces and stuff, that you're no stranger to such talk, right? to people talking in this way, saying like, "Oh, I'm not a communist. I'm a social democrat. I'm a democratic socialist, or I am just a socialist, or whatever, right? Oh, I just believe in all of these things." And ramble off a list of things that you believe in, right? This is very common. There's a big joke in Disco Elysium as well, wherein they sort of crack wise at this when you get assigned a certain like background part, right? Very much they know what they're talking about here, I feel. Anyway, we then swap over to Vault 4, right? Where Lucy is still there, as is Max, as is Maximus. And we sort of see these cryotubes here. They've been working on hybrid humans. That is like their weird experiment for Vault 4. They were researching hybrid humans. We also heard some about Vault 4 being like a testing ground, an early testing ground for Vault-Tec to sort of run advertising for. We see the scientist that Cooper Howard met with. We see old footage of them working on none other than the axolotl gulper, right? Which evidently is a human hybrid. It is part human in some way. It isn't just purely a like mutant creature in like the sense like that a Brahmin is a mutated creature, right? This is a different thing altogether. And the sort of purpose for this was to create humans that could resist radiation, right? This was the thinking. And that also goes so far as to sort of highlight why when we have a close-up of the fights with the axolotl gulper, the inside of its mouth has like fingers, human-looking fingers in there. It all starts to make sense, right? We also get, let's see here. Right. Vault 4 had an interior revolution, right? A lot of the dwellers revolted against the overseer and against the people running the tests, running the science experiments, sort of creating the human hybrids. They thought it was horrible. Thus they revolted and they are in control, right? Then we flip back to Maximus's new squire, who is left with the head in tow. Thaddeus is his name. He is at a red rocket with Dogmeat, of course, and playing over the soundtrack for the show, right? This happens every so often, but I was surprised to hear a Fallout 76 unique song playing. None other than 16 Tons, probably my favorite song from Fallout 76, and gets at the center, the core of sort of the politics of Fallout 76, that being like labor and unionization, and sort of delving back into the miners' strikes that happened in the real world, right? This is a lot of the stuff that's going on in 76, but nonetheless, that's neither here nor there. Fantastic song, starting to play. Just really wild to see such a direct nod to 76 in this sense. Anyway, Thaddeus needs to get rid of Dogmeat, is kind of a liability, puts Dogmeat inside of a Nuka-Cola freezer, only to be found later by someone else. But for now, before we get to that someone else, we quickly swap back over to Lucy, who is seemingly on trial or having to answer for her crimes in Vault 4, as it is revealed that Lucy perhaps is a bit of the bad guy here, that Lucy perhaps overreacted and jumped the gun on Vault 4, in that Vault 4's current denizens are victims in and of themselves, right? They were victimized by Vault Tech and sort of the scientists who were working there and experimenting on them. But Lucy must answer for her crimes of endangering and harming people there, and thus she is put up like on a big pedestal. She's like tied up. The overseer pulls out like a falchion, I think that's how you say it, like a straight up sword, a curved sword, right? Pulls that up, and it's a big comedic moment wherein they're like, "Oh, we're not actually going to kill you. We're forcing you into exile. We're not here to kill you. You're being exiled from here," which effectively, as far as Lucy is concerned, means that she's being let go, right? She's off the hook, as it were. She isn't having to face life or death or have a finger ripped off, which we still get to see. Her trigger finger is someone else's finger. We still see that every so often. Feels very like old world blues, you know. Anyway, we have that happen. We continue getting ingratiated to Vault 4's denizens, who, despite seeming very shifty and spooky and everything, are actually super chill. They still have this kind of like goofy, dumb naivete about them, right? As is attributed to a lot of Vault dwellers in the show especially, and of course in the games. But especially the show loves to dial it up to great effect. It works very well, I think. But yeah, they're fairly nice. They even give her supplies. They say, "We're going to give you, we don't think you'll survive out there. We're going to give you some supplies just so you even have a chance," right? Which, of course, is miles better than her state before she came to the Vault and got involved in everything. So ultimately, she ends up getting like kind of a good deal out of it. But, of course, as this happens, who saw her being hauled away to the center room but none other than Maximus, and this gets Maximus sort of snapped out of his sort of his love of vault life, right? He steals their fusion core, pops it into his power armor, and charges down the halls, ready to save Lucy. But she doesn't really need saving, and he ends up making like a massive mess of the scene. And they both end up, after all is said and done, they apologize as well. They get exiled, seemingly without the supplies this time, but with the fusion core. And then we're left with a bit of a minor moral dilemma, just sort of to explore the like pathos and ethics of these two main characters, these two protagonists of Lucy and Maximus, wherein, of course, we see this in the games where you have a fusion core that you can rip out of generators and stuff, and that fusion core can power an entire building. In this case, it's helping power or run through like a junction or whatever. I have no idea. But it, in some way, some science fiction sort of way, it helps power the entirety of the vault. And without it, they would only be on backup power that lasts for a few days. So we are seeing sort of symbolism here for a lot of the themes that we see in the games, in the show, where this one fusion core can be used to power this entire community's livelihood, this entire group of weird people, but ultimately nice people. It can power up their entire situation, have them going good. Or it could power one unit of power armor, right? Maximus says, well, we could do a lot of good with this, right? Granted, it is a weapon of war, you know, but we could still do a lot of good with it. We could help a lot of people with this power armor. Lucy, however, showing her high speech skill, convinces him otherwise, that they need to give it back, that her father would be very disappointed if he knew what she had done in this situation, right? This is often a lot of her reasoning is like she was raised better. She wouldn't want to disappoint her father, Hank, right? Very good stuff. Very much, in retrospect, and if you sort of read into it, very much implying a certain turn that will occur, right? I believe we had even mentioned this in a past video. But, however, they take back the fusion core. Vault 4 is back with power. Thus, Maximus no longer has a suit of power armor. It's left outside, empty, outside of Vault 4. Anyway, oh, right, yeah. In fact, this is actually where I wrote it down. I wrote down, right here. Let's see. I don't know if that shows up that well. Good Lord. Yeah, that's horrible. That's horrible. You can't, that's completely indiscernible. But I wrote down here, because they make so many allusions to like, oh, my dad wouldn't want this. Immediately, right? The first thing you think is, well, what if he did, right? Immediately you have to enter, this contrarian thought enters like, oh, are they pulling my leg here? Are they like foreshadowing here that, oh, actually he is screwed up? And, sure enough, we get into that later. Man, do we get into that later. Anyway, the sort of love and bond between Lucy and Titus gets ever more romantic, less just on a sexual level, but Lucy invites Maximus, or Titus, right, still going by the name of Titus, to live with her in Vault 33 when all of this is said and done, when their little quest to find Hank is over. To live together, Max as well sees this and feels shame and guilt and has to confess, this is not my real name. I'm not Titus. Titus is the name of this guy who I saw bleed out. This was the real knight. I am just a squire. My name is Maximus. All this comes into light, and he says, I'm not a good person, right? But I don't think that's true, right? I think Maximus very much is a good person who thinks that he's a bad person. I think that is quite true with him, and I think that is also quite true with Cooper, right? If anything, Lucy is just generally good, which I think primes her for becoming evil eventually down the line. I'm open to that, right? I'm down for like their moralities all taking a swap. I'm up for that. I don't know where it'll go, but I would love to see it. Either way, their current morality standings are super interesting to me nonetheless. But yes, Lucy forgives Max, and Max accepts. Max says, yeah, you know what? I think I do really, I love you, Lucy. I love you, Lucy. Lucy, I love you. I love Lucy. He doesn't say it as in so many words, but he accepts. Lucy forgives, effectively saying that, like, yeah, a lot of that was just circumstance. The wasteland is sort of this nightmarish place where we end up doing things, sort of drawing allusions and themes toward, these are good people working within a screwed up system, right? Wherein your need to act in these ways are derivative of like a flawed systemic issue, right? It isn't great that you did this, but it is understandable that you acted the way that you did. Right, we see a fair bit of this. Also, we get a treat to a radio host, right? We swap back over to Thaddeus, who is roaming around. We get a radio host coming over, broadcasting, playing none other than Minuteman Radio, right? Not specifically Minuteman Radio, but exactly the songs that play on that radio station in Fallout 4, the fiddling, as it were. We get a lot of that, and we get a lot of clowning on that radio station as well. A lot of jokes made at the expense of the sort of royalty-free music, right? That there is always, in Fallout games, there is almost always, I think barring New Vegas, right? There was always a radio station that has licensed music and one that has royalty-free sort of public domain music, right? And in Fallout 4, that was Minutemen Radio. Very much evoking that, very much making fun of it. And hey, I liked it. I liked Minutemen Radio. I liked the fiddling. I didn't listen to it all the time, but it was fun to chill out and sort of work on a settlement or whatever with Minutemen Radio playing in the background. I don't know. I spent a lot of time at the castle. I think, the castle, right? I spent a lot of time there building that up, sort of arranging stuff. So I heard it a lot because it plays over the intercom. But nonetheless, we finally run into this mysterious snake oil salesman who kept showing up. At first, it was like in episode 1 or 2, this dude showed up. He doing like the mannerisms of like Captain Jack Sparrow, of like a Johnny Depp character or something going on, right? Very, very odd. But this guy shows up to Thaddeus, who is having issues, right? Because, of course, his leg was stomped on by Maximus inside of power armor. And this snake oil salesman offers him a cure, offers him this liquid that will fix all of his issues and make him better, right? And Thaddeus at first is like, why don't I just shoot you and take it? But ultimately comes to his senses and decides to be a bit kinder and trades a whopping fusion core, right? The one that he stole from Maximus out of the power armor, trades it to the snake oil salesman for this weird liquid. And the way in which it dwells on the scene, you eventually come to the realization like, oh my God, this might actually work. And then you get the close-up and it works, right? He pours this stuff, he imbibes it. Thaddeus imbibes the liquid, and his foot just gets unsmashed, gets straight up fixed up. Very wild. I was wondering, is this like FEV? What is this? We don't fully know, but we do know what will happen to Thaddeus in just a bit. But before we get to that, we swap back to Vault 33's situation with Norm, Lucy's brother, who is delivering meals once more to the prisoners. And then we immediately sort of cut to the passage of time wherein these prisoners are there. But, oh shoot, a bunch of them get wiped out. As it turns out, they were poisoned, rat poison. We don't really know, I don't think, ever who did this. I would say it is probably Betty, right? Because this happens right around the time that the election goes through, that Betty is sort of crowned the new overseer. If I had to guess, it is Betty. And Betty sort of puts out the mandate of repopulating Vault 32, which was wiped out. And thus, they don't want... In fact, yeah, it was definitely Betty, right? Given what we know later down the line. They don't want these raiders involved in what's going on in these vaults, right? They don't want the raiders involved at all. Thus, it had to have been Betty. Though could have very easily been pinned on Norm, but we don't really have the time to sort of lurk or dwell on that situation with Norm being potentially chosen or fingered as being the culprit behind it. But make no mistake, was not him. Very likely Betty, but we don't know for certain. Let's see here. Then we swap back to that red rocket from before the Thaddeus was at, where Dogmeat is inside of a Nuka-Cola freezer. The ghoul, Cooper Howard, finds him there, frees Dogmeat from there, and we sort of get more moments where, you know, Cooper Howard sort of reliving his days of humanity during the pre-war period, sort of like, this guy loves dogs. Oh my God, this guy loves dogs so much. And then we sort of go into actual pre-war times, seeing Cooper snooping on his wife at a Vault-Tec building, right? But he sort of has a moment where he's not quite sure if he really wants to betray his wife's trust, right? He's not sure if he really wants to buy into this nonsense that Moldover is preaching. It's a big will he, won't he situation with the sort of spy gadget or whatever, right? But we come back to current day in post-apocalyptic America, where Cooper looks at Dogmeat, and for the first time in the show actually does call Dogmeat, right? This is the first time where it happens. The name is given to this dog to be Dogmeat from Cooper Howard as a ghoul. Anyway, after that fun little scene with the two of them, we swap back once more to Thaddeus, making his way to this radio station where this host does not want company whatsoever, is continually reminded of such. We see the host there, sort of a weirdo, great outfit, great like cricket cardigan, I would say, I think it is, or tennis cardigan. Dude is holed up inside there, doesn't want any visitors, but seems to be taken to Thaddeus well enough. We see a whole bunch of ridiculous booby traps and stuff set up all around the radio station, the radio tower and antenna. Enormous oversized bear traps, all manner of jury-rigged gizmos and stuff, right? Not unlike sort of the traps that we see in the games, you know? Let's see here. Now, what happens here, Lucy and Maximus catch up to Thaddeus, right? They have a little bit of a scuffle over the head. Thaddeus gets into a situation wherein he is backing up and takes an otherwise fatal like crossbow bolt, an improvised like crossbow bolt, right through his neck, which would otherwise have killed him. But we look more into what exactly was this chemical that he imbibed. We don't know exactly still, but Maximus says, "I think you're a ghoul. Are you a ghoul?" Which evidently ghouls now have some sort of healing factor, some sort of regenerative factor in this case, because he is able to survive the hit through his neck. And it regenerates, it heals itself. And sort of where the skin covers back up, we can see sort of more ghoulified looking flesh, right? Wherein it has healed over. Which I'm not sure if he is a ghoul. I'm not sure if Maximus is correct or not. Mind you, Maximus is like an unreliable narrator. You know, in all of this, you know, take everything that you see with a grain of salt because you're seeing it from a certain perspective and point of view. But nonetheless, he's undergoing ghoulification, which, you know, the Brotherhood ain't down with. I have to wonder, do we think that this snake oil salesman, this doctor, is actually one of the children of Adam, right? in that he is carrying around a whole bunch of highly irradiated liquids. Is this dude actually meant to be like a child of Adam for real? I have no idea. Totally open to the possibility. He looks kind of kooky enough to where I would say, sure, why not? They once again highlight that the Brotherhood of Steel is a complicated organization, they say, with regards to Thaddeus's fate when they find out that he's being ghoulified. Lucy and Maximus have a major smooch. The love is very much official. Love is super duper in the air. These, Vault dwellers falling in love with their followers, their companions. That's nothing new. They have a lovely smooch. There is now a fake head. Maximus takes a head off of one of the bodies that has been mangled by the traps there by the radio host, and uses that hopefully as a ploy against the Brotherhood of Steel, and lets Lucy keep the real head of Dr. Science, which has the mysterious MacGuffin inside of it. Anyway, we swoosh back to Vault 33, which is now, I've just written down in all caps, police state. Martial law has effectively come into state here, wherein if you aren't down with resettling Vault 32, even though you were selected, you better get in the mood for it, or else you're going to be, I don't know, something bad's going to happen. But anyway, Stephanie Harper, also a Vault 31 former resident, is voted as the overseer of 32 for the resettlement process, right? She has decided that she will be the overseer in that area. Once again, another Vault 31 denizen is acting as an overseer, right? We've also got here, we've got Norm, who sneaks away during all of this big ceremony. Norm, who is still remaining in Vault 33, unlike some of his friends and whatnot, who are definitely going over to 32. But Norm takes this opportunity to go into the Overseer's office at 33 at Betty's computer and hacks it. And they have like the hacking UI joke and everything, right? You get to see it. Norm gets lucky, guesses it on his first try, absolutely nails it. Incredible work, incredible luck from Norm. He goes as well to infiltrate Vault 31 itself. He sends a communique between the vaults, right? He poses as Betty in their communications and messages someone from Vault 31 trying to get access to it. And they say, well, come on over, Betty. And so Norm does it. He goes in completely unarmed, probably not the best bet, but this is Norm finally finding some motivation, right? He's described early on as being apathetic toward most pursuits in Vault life. A lot of it does not interest him. He approaches it very half-heartedly. He has been demoted, right? But with this, he goes in with perhaps too much interest, right? Going in very uncautiously. And it is there that you think that the episode is about to end right as he's entering, but no, we get a little extra glimpse of Norm seeing something. We hear something mechanical and Norm looking very shocked and surprised. And then the episode ends. But fortunately, we aren't doing the weekly situation every episode at once. I have no idea why they decide to do this, because the way this show is shot is so weird, because not only does it end wherein you have opportunities for this episodic nature to sort of play rather than it all being released at once. It could totally have worked. It is totally shot as if there was a week between each episode, and there are very obvious points in the show where it looks like this could be a commercial break, right? It's very odd, very weird. It doesn't seem as though it has been made for a streaming service. It seems as if it has been made for like regular television. I don't know. It's very strange. It's not like a huge issue. It's just a odd, peculiar part of it. But anyway, we move on now to the final episode, episode 8, the big finale. And man, what a finale it is. Holy cow. We begin with Max in a vertibird, flying over desert wasteland. He's carrying the fake head. We see Philly as well from the beginning of the show, the settlement. We see that this is where he is headed, this lush area in an otherwise desert wasteland. We see that Philly is fully under Brotherhood of Steel occupation, right? Brotherhood fully going down their fascist routes here. They're just stomping around. They've completely taken over and occupied the entire settlement. Banners are up. They're knights and paladins in their full power armor just standing around. The Pridwin itself, it seems, I don't know if this is the Pridwin. I'm operating under the assumption that this is the Pridwin until we have further evidence that it may not be. But the Pridwin is nearby overhead, very much alike or akin to what happens in the Commonwealth, of course, when it shows up at the airport. But we've got that going on. They very quickly find out with a scan that Maximus has delivered them a fake head, right? Maximus, kind of a doofus, thought he could fool them. They immediately scan it and find out. But Maximus is spared by his old friend, right? The same friend from the very beginning who we thought, oh, how did they get their foot messed up? Well, we come to eventually find out that it was a self-inflicted wound. Later down the line, we find out that Maximus's friend, I think Dane was their name, but the reason why they self-inflicted this wound and made it seem like an accident, like someone else did it, was because they were terrified of going out into the wasteland. They were scared of it. They got intimidated by the prospect of it, and thus sort of self-sabotaged in this way, so that way they would not have to ship out, but could just remain here as a pre-squire, right? Fair enough. We also then get this scene where this guy who is played by, like I said, a Mr. Robot CEO from another show called Mr. Robot, very good show. Very, very similar themes going on as compared to Fallout, right? Totally recommend it. But he plays sort of a ruthless CEO there. And here, I don't think he's an elder. I think he is like a scribe here. But nonetheless, this scribe interviews Maximus and sort of says, oh, together, you know what? I forgive you. You know where we can get this head, right? You know where we can get this very important MacGuffin that we need. The two of us, I'll let you in on a secret. If we work together, we can pool up together and we can perhaps recreate and form our own world, right? We can sort of do our own thing together. We can shape the world as we would like to do it. And Maximus, of course, has very little choice here, has to go along with it. Which the implication here is that this scribe is wanting to revolt against Maxon. I'm assuming Elder Maxon is still in play. We don't know. I don't think there's ever any mention of him, right? It's very odd that there's very little mention of him. If anything, maybe this is because they want to use Elder Maxon in a future game or something. I'm not sure. Or they don't want to mess up the multiple types of canon that could have ended, like the multiple endings of Fallout 4, wherein, Elder Maxon, there are endings where that dude ain't around. There are endings where the Pridwin is not around. Probably my favorite ending is the one in which the Pridwin ain't around. There are multiple ones where that is the case. But nonetheless, it sounds like whoever the elder is, this scribe wants to overthrow it. Unless this guy is the elder, right? I don't know. Maybe this guy is Maxon? I don't think so, though. He doesn't seem or look like him, especially given the years that would have passed. Anyway, we flip back over to Moldaver's observatory base, sort of the iconic California observatory. I forget what it's exactly called. They reference it, but it's, it's the one in Grand Theft Auto, in GTA 5, that there's quite a few bits of missions going on there. We get to see a whole bunch of people who are with Moldaver's cause. I think we see a glowing one. The camera kind of dwells on them, and they're shocked to see folks coming in. I believe it's Lucy who is coming in, right, with the head. And then before we dwell too much there, we immediately go over to Cooper walking through a bit of a desert-seeming area. We see a big old billboard that has been mostly destroyed, but of course any Fallout lover, any Fallout superfan will recognize this billboard. It is unmistakably a Sunset Sarsaparilla billboard, right? I don't think we have seen anything of the like about Sunset Sarsaparilla aside from brief mention of it in Far Harbor, right? At the Vim headquarters where they're talking about other drink competitors. I think we hear about Sunset Sarsaparilla in that way, I think. But nonetheless, we straight up see it here. Makes me once again wondering, where is Cooper at? Where the hell is this at? How close are we to the Mojave currently? Obviously, Sunset Sarsaparilla is still going to have ads beyond the Mojave, right? It wouldn't be just contained to like the Nevada area and the Mojave Desert. You could very easily see it sort of seeping into parts of California. But which I guess if you're an international viewer, if you're not familiar with the makeup of the United States, California is just west of Nevada, of the Mojave, of Vegas. Then we also get a swap over to pre-war Cooper, who is spying on his wife. We learn of Bud Askins a little bit more, who has devised this idea called Bud's Buds, which very much seems as though this is going to immediately come into play very soon, and it does. Then we swap back over to Lucy, who is once again approaching Moldaver's place. We see Hank, Lucy's father, caged up inside of a gigantic human-sized cage. Moldaver is having a meal, a very nice, succulent Chinese, just a succulent-looking meal, a very lovely meal against a wild backdrop that very much evokes the Fallout 1 final scene from its opening cinematic, where the television pans out. It's not it, but it very much evokes it. You see the skyline crumbling with sort of the sky changing colors as the time of day changes. But there is also seated there a mysterious feral ghoul, who is completely, really, really rough looking, but still wearing some clothes, still looking like someone has put some effort into their appearance in some fashion. Very ominous moment. Let's see here. Oh, and Moldaver tells Lucy the truth, which I'm not sure exactly what that means just yet, but Moldaver goes to tell Lucy about Hank, the identity of her father. Yeah, that's it. Which this is kind of like a big build-up moment. We've been building up to this for a while now. Finally, if you haven't been clued in on the last few episodes as to what the hell is going on with Hank, that there is something going on with him, well, now you definitely better fucking know, right? If you haven't figured it out by now, my God, they're making sure you're definitely on board with the rest of us. At this point, we're starting to learn more about him. As Moldaver's narrating, we swap over to Norm back at Vault 31. We find out what Norm was looking at. It is a robo-brain on a Roomba. It is like a little tiny robo-brain mounted on like a Roomba, right? It has a few gadgets, a little tiny aperture that it can use, but very much like a little tiny robo-brain just down there. Talking to him, we come to find out there is another scene. We swap back really quickly. We're not dwelling too long on these scenes. We swap over to pre-war Cooper, who is now inside of the Vault Tech building where his wife works, that he's been spying on her. He's in there. We hear of someone named Henry, right? And of course, if you're familiar with naming, right, Henry and Hank go hand in hand. Now, we do learn that this Hank, Lucy's father, shows up, a slightly younger version shows up in pre-war times working at Vault-Tec. Then we get into this scene where Cooper, pre-war Cooper, is fully spying on his wife. Fully decided, okay, you know what? This stuff seems super shady. I don't like how my wife, her entire situation has changed. I don't like how I've brought this into our house. It feels like a nightmare situation. You know what? I'm finally going through with it. He has hacked into her Pip-Boy. He now has audio access to a very secret Illuminati-esque meeting between some very important people. Vault-Tec CEO is not present, but is presumed to be presiding over the room, right? We see the silhouette of a shadowy figure up above, who I assume is the Vault-Tec CEO. But otherwise, this is a meeting with Vault-Tec's liaisons, high-ranking members, including Cooper's wife, Rose? No. I forget what Cooper's wife's name is. It's not Rose, is it? No, Rose is Lucy's mother's name. Right? Not the same person. But we see Cooper's wife there. We see Bud Askins sort of pitching his Bud's situation. But we also see CEOs of Westech, presumably CEOs. We see CEOs of Westech, Repcon, Big MT, and none other than Robert House is there, representing his own company, Robco. Dude is there, pencil stash, smoking. They gave him a line about a casino and everything. My God, how absolutely buck wild. Probably wouldn't hit anyone else in the same way if you haven't played New Vegas, right? But man, this show was definitely made for people who enjoy the games. My God. Not played by anyone in particular. Of course, his original voice actor passed years ago now. Guy who played Odo on Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. No longer with us, but they got someone to play a slightly younger version of Robert House, kind of how, as he appears in, speaking of the Big MT, the photograph that we see of him sort of mocking, that is sort of, not mocking. Well, yeah, mocking the real life aeronautics CEO. I forget his name, but he was kind of a jackass as well. But we see a picture of him there. And of course, his big screen and everything, unmistakable. But we see him in the flesh, smoking his cigarettes. Like I said, talking casinos, talking about placing bets and whatnot. Kind of incredible, kind of horrifying at the same moment, because all of these very important people are having a great big meeting with Bud. They discuss ways in which they can win the great game of capitalism. They say it in those words exactly. In the final episode here, the show is very much wearing its politics and ideology on its sleeve. These CEOs say, oh, we have competed for so long, but our competition has, of course, these beacons of capital, beacons of entrepreneurship, are patting themselves on the back in a way, saying oh, our competition has bred such great innovation for humanity and whatnot. But how can we get rid of other competitors? How can we get rid of other factors? Right? There are other risks involved, like war, other nations, and whatnot, other factors that make doing business a bit of a problem. What if we could have the greatest monopoly of all time, right? They acknowledge the greatest weapon of mass destruction that exists. Time, right? Time is the key, perhaps. Then we swap back over to Norm, hanging out with the Roomba. The Roomba Robo-Brain is revealed to be Bud Askins, none other. Bud Bud Askins starts having like a villain speech with Norm, who is now inside of Vault 31, which is very, very small. But although it is very small, it has a very big storage component. There is an immense cryo storage area filled with some very important people, filled with Bud's buds. This is the Bud's Buds program on full display here in Vault 31. And indeed, they are of the executive class. Oh my god, I absolutely nailed it. Not quite the way that I was thinking that would play out, but nonetheless, holy shit, cannot believe that. But we have that whole situation going on. Bud mentions sort of his inspiration for creating this, for sort of having these cryotubes filled with a lot of very important people and their direct underlings, saying that, well, it would be ridiculous to keep a failed nation alive, right? So rather than sort of keeping alive the forces of the American government, right, as the Enclave would be keen to do, right? Another factor, another sort of group, sort of in this situation, the American government, it has failed, right? They acknowledge, oh, it has failed. And perhaps in no small part, it is their doing. It is their actions, these CEOs and stuff, their actions have in some ways contributed to its downfall. But nonetheless, they say, why should we even try to keep a failed nation alive? Why should we bother with resuscitating this when we're the successes here? So they have companies instead. They have prioritized the executive class in these places. Vault 31 revealed to be an enormous cryo storage area. It's walkable area, super duper small. 32 and 33 are revealed to be breeding pools where they're basically doing corporate eugenics is what's going on there. They're breeding them for ideal traits, ideal situations where like, oh, these are people who are the best at obeying a superior, but they're also great at doing various clerical and managerial work sort of in a corporate environment, right? They're literally breeding them for these traits. Absolutely wild, just full-on eugenics going on. Vault-Tec, we're back in a pre-war era with the discussions between the CEOs. Even more wild stuff here. This is completely buck wild. I don't believe this was canonically official in the games. I'm like 90% sure that this was a massive, not even fan theory, but this was a originally scrapped, not officially canon, plan that was going to appear in the original iteration of Fallout 3. It appears in the Fallout Bible, which we had talked about not too long ago. I believe the entirety of the Fallout Bible is available online, just freely. But stuff in the Fallout Bible is not strictly canon until it appears in a game, right? Otherwise, you can operate with it, but it's not canon until it officially is, right? It can be canon, but it doesn't officially exist. However, now the show, I believe, like I said, I believe this is like a big point inside of the Fallout Bible, and that a lot of people talk about being an interesting thing because this comes up a lot in player lore discussions. Who dropped the bombs? Who did it? Right? Well, it is all but confirmed that it is Vault-Tec, that it is these various CEOs working in cahoots with Vault-Tec to bomb the shit out of the United States and start the atomic war, to start the Great War. It is not fully confirmed. They do have an out, but it is heavily implied that they are the ones who did it. They most certainly wanted to do it. There could be a rug pull situation where it's like, oh, we wanted to do it, but we never were ever actually able to fully pull it off, right? They could do that, but as it stands, I think we should operate under the presumption that these various CEOs all worked in cahoots with one another in some fashion in order to cause the Great War. Because As we had mentioned in prior videos, right, these companies have, although they're private sector, the government has like contracted them for various like defense, civil defense, weapons manufacturing and stuff. They've been contracted out for military purposes and defense purposes. They have a fiduciary responsibility, right? There are investors. They need to keep the numbers going up. They need to maintain profitability. How do you guarantee results on something like vaults? You guarantee it by them being the ones to drop the bombs. How do you guarantee that your vaults will be useful? Well, you need to be the one who drops the bombs. It is like the thought process behind planned obsolescence taken to the nth degree, right? Wherein you create your own problem and you to your own solution and sell that solution, right? It's like planned obsolescence, right? They're guaranteeing results. It is even Robert House who asks about this. It is Robert House himself who says, this is a great idea and everything, but how can you even guarantee results with all of this, right? How can you make a guarantee? How you are just shooting in the dark, right? Robert House, of course, as sinister, as much of a jackass he is, right? As power driven as he is, as money hungry as he is, dude is super duper smart, right? And calls him out, and he says this, and they're like, well, we can attain a true monopoly by virtue of us wiping the slate clean. What if nobody else exists? All of our competition is gone except for us. We're the only ones remaining. We get to rebuild the entirety of the country, the entirety of the planet in our image. By nuking it all away, we wield time itself by way of cryogenically freezing ourselves. They start to come up with ideas for other vaults as well. Every CEO is starting to list off various ideas for other vaults, some of which we have 100% seen in canon, in games before. They talk about why don't we pump psychotropics into the air system, the ventilation system of one of these vaults, and just see what happens, right? Why don't we have one where we overpopulate the vault and have them fight each other to see who ends up being the best, right? So said the Westech CEO. So all of these social experiments, we finally have a canonical reason as to why they even exist, why they decide to do it in the first place. To what end, we didn't fully know. They have finally given us a very convincing reason that a lot of these are all ideas from these CEOs who have different approaches to this issue, to this problem of how they want to reemerge years later. Now, as well, we come to find out that Hank and pre-war Henry are the same. He is still to this day a Vault-Tec executive assistant. Not fully like a CEO. We do not know who the Vault-Tec CEO is, but he is an executive assistant. Will we ever learn who this CEO is? Like I said, we saw a shadowy silhouette of someone standing over this meeting, but we don't know who, right? Are they even human? Are they even human? Are they like some sort of AI? I don't know. We don't know. Maybe we will never know, right? This may be one of those questions that just continues going unanswered, and we only ever get their upper management, right? But yes, they want to engage a true monopoly. Now, of course, a lot of these CEOs are presumed frozen in cryo, right? Inside of Vault 31. A lot of their upper management, a lot of these executive assistants are presumed to be in cryo, very likely in Bud's program in Vault 31. We don't know for certain, if there's a frame in which, there's a scene in which we see a list of names that is inconclusive. It doesn't show the entirety of them. But I don't know if the CEOs are kept in their own sort of vault that isn't connected, or if they are actually all in Vault 31. Now, the important thing that we need to remember is that, of course, not all these CEOs are in there. How many are in there? Maybe none of them. Maybe they all went and did their own thing, because we know of at least one Actually, we know of at least 2, don't we? Yeah, but one of which isn't super important. Speaking of the Nuka World DLC, how there is a spoilers. There is a CEO underneath, meant to be a play on Walt Disney being frozen, suspended underneath Disney World. They sort of do that old chestnut, and there's a brain under there. Not terribly impactful. Wasn't at this meeting, but who was at this meeting? Robert House, who is, as we know, gets underneath the lucky 38, baby. Now, this is so fun because we're finally taking, like I said before, we're taking so much pre-existing lore and we are advancing it. We're moving it forward. We're making decisions with it. It is dangerous. It is exciting. I absolutely love it. I could 100% see situations where people are afraid of it. They're afraid of the plot going forward. They want to maintain this status quo, as it were. Those, like I said before, these games exist. You can still go back and play New Vegas. It's all still canon. None of this gets rid of what happened in those games, right? Whatever happened. There is just new developments. The timeline has moved forward. Things are going on. We can even discern sort of wild and interesting things about the goings. This recontextualizes stuff that happened in like New Vegas that was mysterious. Just off the top of my head, as I was watching the episode, I jotted down stuff here every so often when it occurred to me. Remember, in New Vegas, it is said that Vegas itself, the city, was targeted by like 20 to 30 nuclear warheads itself. Just the city, just Vegas of all places, not even Hoover Dam was so heavily targeted. And House had a sort of, I don't know, like anti-interception, missile interception system. I forget exactly what's called, not unlike the fucking Iron Dome. But he has that, which shoots down and intercepts these warheads before they can impact the city. We now have a reason to know, well, of course they targeted that, right? If these are competitors, if Robert House saw a flaw in this plan, decided to go out on his own and said, okay, I know their plan. What if I just take this one step further? What if I sort of have my own reassurances and backups and stuff, right? Well, if I put all this into place, they will know that I'm out here, right? My competitors, these other CEOs and stuff, Vault-Tec will know. They will have a nuclear armament, a nuclear arsenal that they will use against me. Thus, I need to prepare for this, which 100% means it makes perfect sense as to why Vegas was so heavily targeted. Because otherwise, if it were the Chinese who attacked, solely the Chinese who launched the nukes, why would they have attacked Vegas so heavily compared to other places? Why would they attack Vegas of all places? There's no valuable resource there that they could have possibly known of, right? As far as we know, nobody else knew about Robert House unless he let them know. But this completely works out, right? This works so well within pre-existing lore. Also, let's see here. I wrote something as well about the divide. There's something else super duper interesting about that. Maybe it hasn't come up yet, right? Let's see. There's something very fascinating about how it recontextualizes what goes on at the divide. Very fascinating, of course, that they acknowledge Big MT, right? Super duper wild to have Big MT's CEO there. Let's see. Did I actually not write it down? Oh yeah, here we go. Right. Really wild stuff as well with this revelation that, and now it's canon, right? It's heavily implied that it is Vault-Tec that started the Great War, that set it off, right? It's planned obsolescence on such a grand scale. So absolutely buck wild, I think. But well, hang on. Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So hang on. Let's dial it back a little bit. So after this scene with Robert House, with the meeting, with this quasi-Illuminati meeting, we find out Lucy's mom left and fled Vault 33, right, to Shady Sands. She found out about the surface. Oftentimes in vaults, you're led to believe that the surface is completely irredeemable, that there's nothing up there. I believe this was a plot point in Fallout 3 with James, the Lone Wanderer's father. Similar situation happens here. But Vault Tech is confirmed to have been the culprit behind the nuking of Shady Sands. It is Vault Tech. Absolutely. They say this is how Vault Tech deals with competition, right? This is super duper fascinating, right? We're thinking about sort of how Vault Tech has potentially targeted Robert House, right, with the 20 or 30 nuclear warheads aimed directly at Vegas. Now all of that makes so much more sense, is completely recontextualized. I have to wonder now, if we have this Illuminati group, and like I said, a lot of this, I would love to go back through the Fallout Bible, because it 100% seems like they're drawing from this stuff, right? I'm like 90% sure that Vault Tech, having started the Great War, is a very popular fan brought up theory about it, because it exists in the Fallout Bible, but none of the games have decided to officially make it canon. But now it is 100% in the canon. Incredibly wild, incredibly cool, I think. But this recontextualizes a lot of the issues that the NCR was having. If these people, these CEOs, were pulling the strings on such a scale that they were also seeing, they wanted to completely wipe the slate clean, right? They didn't kill everybody, right? They didn't kill everybody. They want to get rid of them all. All these factions and stuff, they want to either wait them out hundreds of years, that way they can emerge from the vaults with a clean slate, so to speak, shape the world as they see fit, play the part of gods. There is the issue of post-war humanity, right? Cropping up all around you. People who survived, people who are ghouls, people who survived by other means, right? Groups like the Brotherhood of Steel, groups like the NCR. So they nuked Shady Sands. It is Vault Tech that is responsible for Shady Sands specifically. This is 100%, not even heavily implied, is just outright said that Vault Tech is the ones that blew up Shady Sands because they saw them as competition. They didn't want another sort of group like this rising to power, right? They didn't want another, situation where there's a nation that exists that they need to compete with when they come out, when they emerge from the vaults hundreds of years later, right? The NCR was probably, at least in the United States, confirmed within California, seemingly the biggest powerhouse of all damn time, right? Operating at its peak. I have to wonder as well, all throughout New Vegas, we hear so much about this. And I wonder if part of this is how much Robert House is involved in this. I don't think this was all written with this knowledge, but it functions just the same, right? Like, even if originally the writing wasn't done with this in mind, it does work. It totally works. And all of the mysteries are cleverly recontextualized by virtue of having this new information, right? NCR was plagued during Fallout New Vegas, absolutely plagued with bureaucratic issues holding them back, right? How many times, even people within the NCR, they complain about so many people get put up into places of power and they're just incompetent. There's the one guy that everybody quotes who investigates the weird plant vault, right? That scientist guy. Everyone loves to pull that guy's quote when it's really meant to be a satirization of his own character, because he's a complete idiot. There's that guy. There's stuff involved with Tandy losing power. You have to wonder how much of this is them pulling the strings, how much of this is them from within their vaults exerting what control they have, throughout all of these events, right? We have entered like a Deus Ex Illuminati world for Fallout, right? That exists post-war, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is 100% what we're getting now. Is all of that bureaucratic nonsense that slowed down and screwed over the NCR as they were reaching their like pinnacle? Was that planned? Was that planned by these CEOs, by Vault-Tec, by like West-Tec CEO, by Repcon, Big MT, all this shit? Just as well, the Big MT folks, we know what happens to a lot of the scientists, right? They had plans. They have what do you call it? Contingency plans for the apocalypse as well, by way of going inside of their own little doohickeys, right? I have to wonder how many signed up for Buds, and how many thought, well, I'm a successful entrepreneur. Clearly, I know the correct answer, right? They pull a Big MT. They pull a Robert House. They have their own sort of solution. They pull a whatever his name is underneath Nuka World. It is so wild. You have to wonder as well. We mentioned it last time with the divide, with Ashtown and Hopeville or whatever it's called. When Courier 6 inadvertently creates the divide, all of the weird happenstance that occurs in that situation, there's so much weird, inexplicable stuff. Thanks to this new development, I think we can now, not with 100% certainty, but can we not divine that perhaps this is Vault-Tec interference, right? That all of these, like the 1%, these high stakes capital owners are interfering with the events that play out in post-war America. They're slowly like exerting control over stuff. We don't know sort of exactly why that package ends up there, right? Did they intentionally want that nuclear arsenal revealed and utilized by the Courier inadvertently by way of having that signal going off that bombs out the entire area, thus also exposing the nuclear arsenal, which could be used on Shady Sands, right? That is very likely that is where that nuclear weapon came from, is from the divide. As well, the Courier and Ulysses are set up to bomb the shit out of both the NCR and Caesar's Legion. Because even if one of them gets bombed, but if both of them get bombed out, if there is a secret third party at play, or even fourth party, assuming Robert House isn't part of this, we don't know to what end quite yet. I'm sure we will, given how this all ends, how this season ends. But is it not possible that they pulled the strings in order to have all that set up, in order to completely destabilize, what do you call it? Shady Sands, to destabilize the NCR, because it is revealed that Moldover here, this is the HQ of the last remnants of the NCR. We know that other people who previously were in the NCR very likely still exist, right? As we had seen with these two people wearing the Ranger outfits, although this is like NCR leadership and military force, there still exists a citizenry everywhere, right? They're still out there. They're not like all completely wiped out or whatever. That's definitely not the case. It's just like the standing military and any sort of like upper echelons of their government are seemingly wiped out as far as we know. At the very least in the Shady Sands, California area. We don't know at all about the Mojave. But I have to wonder how much of that was them pulling the strings. Same goes for any time a major faction gets wiped out. What if, right, we could extend this further out. In Fallout 1, yeah, think about this. Okay, I didn't even write this down. Think about this. If we're going this route where we've got like Illuminati situations set up with Vault-Tec CEOs and other CEOs working in cahoots, if they want to keep the slate wiped clean and wipe out all of these major factions, you could read into a world in which the Vault Dwellers that we play as are inadvertently acting as patsies, just as Courier 6 inadvertently blew up all that shit and was part of the divide, right? Every single one of our player characters has an opportunity, right, to wipe out a major faction in some form, right? Fallout 1, we wipe out the Master. Sure, they were bad, right? But is the Overseer clued into that? I don't even know. Is there some other level of manipulation in play where in the Vault, Fallout 1's Overseer was given this sort of situation where the water chip breaks, you are encouraged, all these strings are being pulled, and you are pointed toward the Master to wipe them out, get rid of the super mutants in this way, to where there's, like, the Master is a big threat, unifying everyone in this way. Sure, it's a fucked up way of doing it, but regardless of whether it's fucked up or not and in what way, that is competition to Vault-Tec. The Enclave, of course, you wipe them out in 3 and 2, at the oil rig and at Raven Rock, right? Are these Vault Dwellers and all of these actions like the results of Vault-Tec pulling the strings for these big, like, post-war America events popping off? In Fallout 4, very high chance that one of these factions gets wiped out, right? These factions are pitted against each other. Extremely high chance that the Institute is completely destabilized and wiped off the map. I think very few people go the pro-Institute route. And even if you do, you're wiping out the Brotherhood in that area. The Pridwin is getting bombed the fuck out. The Minutemen are getting stomped out. The Railroad as well getting stomped out, but what kind of chance would they stand? All of this gets completely recontextualized in such a wild and cool way. I am completely taken aback and fascinated by it to like the nth degree. It is so wild. Anyway, to go back, let us go back a bit here. Lucy, it is revealed that she brought inside of the head what Moldaver was working on in R&D, which was cold fusion, which exists, of course. Well, doesn't exist in real life, but it's something that people would like to exist in real life because it is effectively limitless energy, right? And so we also learn that the feral ghoul present at this meal table is Lucy's mom. And it seems as if Moldaver had a thing for Lucy's mom in some way. Lucy's mom was present at Shady Sands, got bombed the hell out by Vault-Tec, by Hank, right? Hank hunted her down, did this. Lucy has Hank enter the code for the cold fusion that he knows she needed the information, as well as the MacGuffin inside of the head. All these combined, bang, bing, bang, bosh, we are getting cold fusion. Cold fusion now exists canonically within the world of Fallout by the end of this season. Absolutely buck wild. We see city lights come on at night, begin dotting the landscape. Also, Norm seemingly trapped inside of Vault 31 now. We learned that the cryo for all these folks in here, they have stipulations in place, or not stipulations, they have plans in place for an eventuality where even hundreds of years from now, from 22 whatever, there are plans where these cryotubes would not open up until hundreds more years, right? Norm learns this. Then the Brotherhood of Steel shows up, attacks the NCR remnants, seemingly just wipes out the entirety of the HQ, right? Everyone who is still in the standing military, at least as it exists here at the observatory, whatever regiment exists under Moldaver. There could be other groups, right? We know, of course, that there are civilians all over town. Former NCR Rangers definitely exist out in the world. But the Brotherhood of Steel shows up, wipes them the hell out, gets control of the cold fusion. Maximus is there, deemed a hero for killing Moldaver. Even though Moldaver took a hit from, I believe it was Hank, wasn't it? I can't remember now. I don't think I actually wrote down who actually got is credited with the kill of Moldaver, but it is irrelevant because it more so matters who is actually seen to be the one that did it, and it is Maximus, make no mistake. People are now saying that Maximus should be a knight. Let's see here. Oh yeah, as the Brotherhood of Steel shows up, Cooper fights them off while Hank and Lucy are still there, gives Lucy a chance to escape with Cooper. Cooper shows up in this like super dope moment wherein he guns down power armored Brotherhood of Steel members. Really wild. Surprised that he didn't do that earlier with Maximus. I'm not sure why. Probably he didn't perceive him as a threat. I would say there's a million reasons why you could give him cause to not do that. But here he exploits a weakness in the front armor plate, which I'm not sure, but I feel like I've heard that before, that there's a weakness in the welding of the front armor plate of the power armor. I don't know where I've heard that before, but I feel like I've heard it somewhere, right? I have no idea where. I think it's 100% a direct reference to something that's brought up in one of the games, but I cannot remember where, because it sounded so familiar when he said it. But he utilizes that. The power goes out. He's able to take out a lot of them. It's incredibly wild. 100% seems like he is a former NCR Ranger. Would be exceptionally fitting if that were the case, especially now given the state of the NCR being perhaps at its lowest ever, if not nearly or completely wiped out. But I like the idea of the NCR existing and continuing to exist as an idea, right? The show is very much framed pro NCR, with it playing like theme music and stuff whenever an NCR flag shows up. They're very much painted as like a positive force. Granted, a bit of a positive, if not shaky and potentially dangerous force, right? But the cinematography indicates in many ways that they are a bit more, I don't know, goodly, right? I don't know how best to put it. I'm a little drained after talking for so long, but regardless, all that stuff pops off really wild. Hank is in power armor with no helmet. Lucy pulls Max's gun on Hank, ready to shoot him, grazes his cheek, has this like wild scar now on his face. Cooper himself, it is revealed the whole reason he kept himself alive was to find his family. Also, this pre-war vendetta they had formed over these CEOs. He absolutely cannot stand any of this Vault-Tec shit, how they took his own how he played a role in their own sort of manufactured identity and stuff, how he helped them sell this bill of goods, and he feels some degree of responsibility for everything that went down given his closeness. And of course he feels horrible about, he wants to know what's going on with his family. Seemingly his daughter and wife are still alive. They're not confirmed dead, so very much seems like they will be somewhere, probably not in Vault 31 if there are other places that have cryo storage in the same vein as Vault 31, right? If anything, that seems to cinch it, right? Unless they are in 31. It's entirely possible. Bud's Buds, right? Bud Askins. We've also got, let's see, Lucy pulls the gun and shoots her own feral mother. This is like probably her second kill. Also a feral ghoul, but a very meaningful kill nonetheless, to have seen like her mother like this. Max got KO'd by Hank in power armor. Max is left at the observatory as Cooper and Lucy run off and escape with Dogmeat as well. A dying Moldover. Yeah, we don't actually see who lands the killing blow in Moldover. It's completely unknown. But Maximus does end up getting credit for it, seemingly against his wishes. He does not want it. But Max awakens, sees Moldover, who, like I said, has a bit of a weird romantic, gesture toward the corpse of Rose, Lucy's mom. We also see she finally activates the entirety of cold fusion. We see the city lights light up. We go over to Lucy, Cooper, and Dogmeat underneath the Hollywood sign in the twilight hours. As it lights up, power has come to it, cold fusion is running through. The Brotherhood of Steel is on the scene at the observatory. They have claimed cold fusion, near limitless energy. And then, even wilder, we see a figure in power armor. We see an up-close shot of a Deathclaw skull. We have not seen a Deathclaw and many other creatures as well in this whatsoever. We have seen 0 super mutants, friendly or otherwise, 0 super mutants out here, which makes sense, right? Makes sense given what we know of the area, that there would be very few super mutants whatsoever. I'm sure we will see one eventually as the show continues along. In season 2, I don't know, maybe. But we see this close-up of a Deathclaw skull, and then we see Hank approaching it in his power armor still. Time has passed. He is visibly looking a lot more ragged. And Hank looks over at the horizon. The sun is coming up, and he is looking over. He's standing at some sort of ridge. Behind him, a pit of gravel, right? With a Deathclaw skull. You know, Deathclaws in gravel. And on the horizon is revealed none other than Vegas itself. Hank has traveled all the way to Vegas, I assume, to meet with Robert House, who may or may not still be alive. Will they commit to an actual ending from New Vegas, right? Will they commit to it? Will it be overrun with Caesar's Legion? We don't know. We only get a faraway shot of the place. We have no idea what is actually there. We don't see electricity, but the time of day is such where you maybe wouldn't see it. But make no mistake, Hank is there at Vegas. It is intact, is not bombed out as best we can tell. The Lucky 38, the tower, is still standing. We can see it clearly. Absolutely wild. There is also fun scenes of the closing credits showing just like art from another rendered out version, silhouettes of Vegas itself. So buck wild, so incredible that this is how we're actually going to deal with this. We are actually moving forward with lore in this area. I have no doubt that we will hear more of like Robert House. We literally see the Tops Casino in the closing credits. The name is even there. It's absolutely buck wild. Yeah, I was completely blown away. I'm still kind of blown away by it. It is so shocking. It is so incredible. I cannot wait to see what the hell is going on. He's definitely going there for House, but what will be the status of this guy? I don't know. Either way, in the final episode, of course, we have casting for House, right? We have our live action Robert House ready to go. Right, you can put makeup on him just as we have for Walton Goggins if we want to make him still alive in his own like jack-off tube. All that stuff can be going on if we want. I'm wondering, will we see Enclave remnants out here? Will they still exist? How much time has passed between Vegas or Fallout New Vegas, the game, and the show? Is it possible that the remnants are still alive? Is it possible that we find Arcade Gannon? Is it possible that we see more of like the Crimson Caravan and stuff out here? Caesar's Legion is a big one, the tribals of the area. Absolutely wild. Also leads me to believe that we will see New Reno at some point because of, like I had said earlier, it seemed as if Cooper was buried in New Reno, right? 100% seemed that way. Zero confirmation. It just seems that way. We know that a Don Pedro exists somewhere. That sounds very New Reno to me, but we don't know for certain. Absolutely buck wild. I cannot believe it. Hopefully they can finish the series before Fallout 5, but I don't know. I would guess we will get season 2 in 2 years, right? That's typically the turnaround for television. Maybe 3 if it has to go a little bit slower. I don't know. Incredibly wild. I absolutely love it. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic that we're finally moving along with this stuff. We're not just having it stagnate. We're not just having games that seem wholly divorced from the world. The cool thing about this show is that it is making the world seem so much more cohesive and connected, wherein there are a whole bunch of moving parts all at play, rather than just being contained within one region, within one game, where you kind of sometimes hear rumblings, but always that game is afraid to do too much to influence the other stuff. I love how risky it's getting. And so far, the risk to me has paid off. Like I said, I've heard, and I'm sure there will be plenty of people who are not interested in this, and especially people who are not interested in Fallout now, that it is very much a whole lot more wearing its ideology on its sleeves, I think. So much more than the games have in the past. But I don't know, maybe they still won't get it. I mean, just look at Helldivers, right? I don't know. But it's incredible. We need to get some Fallout on this channel before too long. Holy cow. I have loved it. I would give it, if I had to rate the television show, I love a 5 out of 5, or I love an out of 5 rating, and I think I would give it a 5 out of 5, right? I loved it that much. It is so reverent to the games, and there is so much there for the games. If anything, I'm super curious to know how people who are unfamiliar with the games sort of enjoy the show, right? I think just like the basic plot beats and stuff are good enough, but I could see it to where you don't give it like a 5 out of 5. You give it like a 3 or a 4 if you're not super duper into that world and the world building and having it move forward, right? Having these things in motion all at once. Super wild, super exciting. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I could see there being a situation where maybe they didn't pay super close attention to various dates, but even that, it seems like they've left themselves plenty of openings and wiggle room. But if that does come to pass, that it is revealed like, oh, you got some of the dates wrong, fudge it, right? Just fix it then, right? Like, that is unimportant compared to the overarching narrative on display and how they're making use of these tools, of these parts that have been in place for years, like I said, just stagnating. We're finally making use of it. We're finally creating more creative works, and it's incredible. I also cannot believe, given how like anti-capitalist and anti-corporate the show seemingly is, it is wild that this show is on Amazon. Did they even watch their own show that they were like funneling money toward, that they were paying Jonathan Nolan to produce and shit? Like, how did they get away with this? Like, Amazon is such a close allegory to some of the mega corporations present in this. They literally have a film division just like Vault-Tec, right? It is so wild that this exists on Amazon. I cannot believe it. It's incredible. My biggest fear is that what happened to Westworld will happen here with regards to Jonathan Nolan's last project, wherein the first season of Westworld, oh my God, it was incredible. I loved it. And every season after that, I felt, and I didn't even, fair enough, in its defense, I didn't watch all the latest seasons, right? I think it went up to 4 or 3. I did not watch seasons 3 and 4 because season 2 just felt so different. It, like, the pacing of it, the mystery and intrigue of it was gone. I don't know. It should have been a 1-season show, I almost feel like, right? That season, it could have ended perfectly there. So I'm super curious if they can pull it off again and continue to do so. Will this show be operating in conjunction with another mainline Fallout release? Obviously, we have 76 still going, and they're still making updates and major patches and stuff to that. But, you know, given the fact that it's set so early, it could be completely irrelevant, right? It doesn't need to have any interconnectivity. But I'm curious if Fallout 5 or another spiritual like successor to New Vegas, if that ends up happening, when that will be set. I would love for it to exist in this post Fallout television season 1 world. God, I would love it. I don't know. I really, really enjoyed it. like I said, for me, it's a 5 out of 5. I think it's absolutely daring. I think it is so dope that they have decided to go this route. Like I said, I hate that all this cool shit was just left stagnating, and now we're finally getting to do something with it, right? And even better, it's good, right? The something that they're doing with this is all good, right? All this stuff, like I said, with the Fallout Bible, stuff that was planned for Van Buren for the original Fallout 3, this is all being made into reality. It's now becoming canon in some ways. I wonder how much else they're going to pull from the Fallout Bible, if anything, right? Absolutely buck wild. I love it. We should probably end this now because I got some other things to get done on the channel as well as in real life, and my voice is starting to get a bit hoarse. Until next time, please take care of each other.